Being here, appreciate it. Excited to get going. It's that time of year. Really exciting week if you're a college football fan. I think 20 games tomorrow, a bunch Friday, a bunch more Saturday. I think 2 on Sunday and 1 on Monday. So the bad thing is we got to wait till Monday to play, but we'll need all the time that we can to get prepared and get ready to go play against a really good North Carolina team. So our guys are looking forward to it. I think they've been looking forward to getting back on the field ever since the New Mexico Bowl. You know, I think we ended the season with a little bit of momentum and some confidence, and we're anxious to see kind of where we pick up, and hopefully we'll pick up where we left off. So looking forward to the trip, and I know it'll be a great atmosphere in Chapel Hill. Never been there before. It'll be the first time I've ever coached in the stadium. So it should be a great. Should be a great crowd and a great environment to coach and play in.
Coach, first off, thanks for lunch.
Yep.
Secondly, do you feel like, and you said you're gonna use that time all the way through Monday, do you feel like you got everything in though? I mean, do you feel comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, there's still a little bit of installation that we'll do tomorrow. 1 or 2 little things today, little tweaks, but yeah, we've kind of had a little bit of an extended time that get the game plan in and get it ready and kind of greased up. Normally Tuesday's a big, introduction day, and today's kind of the Tuesday for us, Tuesday practice for us, even though it's a Wednesday. But normally that's the day you intro your game plan and everything, and we weren't doing much of that today. Kind of more refining some things that we put in last week and then worked over the weekend.
How much more difficult is it to game plan when you're going up against a team that there's not a film on it?
Yeah, hard to game plan. I mean, we don't have really much of an idea exactly what we're going to see or where the guy's going to be, or so it's not easy. But that's kind of the first game, and particularly when you've got a new coaching staff on top of that, and then you also have a coach that's transitioning from the NFL to college football. So there's a lot of unknowns.
Coach, to kind of piggyback off that, how much stock do you put in some of the film that you see from the NFL on both sides of the ball?
Well, look, there's a lot. I mean, obviously Coach Belichick had a long career and had a lot of success, and so my guess is a lot of those things that he did well as the head coach of the Patriots, or before that, was, we're going to see a lot of those things. I think that's, from talking to people, that's kind of what they say is, look, he does a really good job teaching, and these are the things he believes in, and this is what makes him successful, and my guess is we'll see a lot of that.
Some of the guys that you had that were in that game 2 years ago, that talked about, they get caught up in the name. But
Right.
This time, they're not.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure it doesn't happen. They're kids sometimes. I think we've taken a little bit different approach as coaches for sure. And the one thing that happened that year is we had a lot of new faces too. We were trying to instill our culture because we had kind of a senior group in 22, and then we lost, I think, 7 juniors to the NFL draft. And so we got 2 real classes of players, really, recruiting classes, kind of moved on. And then we took a lot of 1-year transfers that year as well, just to add to the roster. So there were a lot of new faces. We were, concerned going into the game. We felt like that we weren't as far along as a team and as a program and as a culture, quite frankly, as we needed to be. And so, I think all of us coaches were certainly concerned. I think like I said, we just didn't do as good a job of getting the guys' attention probably as we should have.
One of the biggest faces is Gio Lopez, the quarterback. Did you guys watch a lot of South Alabama?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. Obviously, to try to figure out what his skill set is, and he's a good player. I like the way he plays the game. He's a good runner, throws the ball well, can move around, can extend plays, can also make plays with his feet. And I liked him. You could tell he had some charisma and inspired some confidence in his teammates, and so I liked what I saw from him.
On the other side of the ball, you talked a little bit about Bill Belichick, but also Steve, his son, was in Washington last year. How much of this game plan are you trying to piece together what they're going to do defensively versus just execute the offense?
Yeah, both. you always have to. You got to start with what do you do well, and how do you utilize your best players, and what are you comfortable doing, and then how does that match against the looks that you think you're going to see, and then okay, how does that match against the looks and the personnel? So there's just kind of that whole process that you go through as you prepare a game plan. can I get our best players on their weakest players? And hard to know right now, just based on the fact that we don't know where guys are gonna be. I think we have some ideas, but we're not really sure. And so, that's the challenge, is that right there within itself. But I've always been a big believer that particularly early in the season, in week one especially, it's more about just going out and executing, doing what you do, taking care of the football, playing smart, not having penalties, no pre-snap penalties, nothing silly, no lack of discipline penalties. And so that's gonna be important for us to just play a clean football game, I think is the biggest thing.
Like you said, today's like a Tuesday on Wednesday or whatever, on this
Yeah.
what day you think it is, but how awkward is it, the schedule for you, how hard is it to kind of get in the season with a Monday night game, and then you're gonna have a.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the thing about it is, it's kind of fall camp extended from the standpoint, during fall camp, you really don't have any idea what day of the week it is. They're all the same. And it's kind of that way leading up to this. It'll be weird, on Saturday though, or it'll be weird tomorrow night, watching a bunch of games then on Thursday night, and then on Friday, and then on Saturday. The hard thing about playing, a weekday night game is, there's no football on that day, so your players are sitting around watching soap operas, or game shows, or whatever it is. And so it's whatever's on during the day, I don't even know.
The View.
The View, yeah.
Every day.
I'm sure a lot of our players watch The View, yeah, so they can really get caught up in Joy and what's going on in her life, But, it's just the way it is, and so it's, that's a little bit weird and kind of unusual, but it's just one of those things. And as you said, then we turn around and have an open week. But, look, every day is important from a preparation standpoint. It really is. You gotta maximize every chance you get. You never know when one walkthrough prevents a guy from making a critical mistake in a game or something. So you gotta keep turning the screws right up to kickoff.
You guys got Manjat back in kind of the latter half of camp. I know
Yeah.
you told us he had to get up to speed. What type of impact he's been making?
Yeah, good. He's been really good. He's solid. That's the thing about it. The guy's played a lot of football games. He's made catches in big games. There's just a confidence that Josh has in him, and that he's got. He's just done this before, and I think that's good for us. We're getting some guys back that have been a little bit banged up in camp, so starting to get the full complement of our wide receiver group back and healthy, and so that's been important.
College is obviously a different game, but from his time in the NFL, what would you say that Belichick is best at as a head coach?
Well, to me, just figuring out, how to win. His teams won a lot of different ways depending on his personnel and who were the best players. So I think that to me is what high-level coaching is. There's going to be sometimes, where, college coaches sometimes go to programs where they've got great players and they've had tradition and success and everything's kind of lined up for them. And they kind of do what the other guys have done, and they win, and those guys are heralded. But it's difficult in the NFL just because of the draft and the schedule and all the things that they do to make it as even as possible. And so, I really do believe in college football too, you can acquire the best players. Guys have done it forever by either now paying them more than everybody else does, or back in the day paying them more than everybody else did, just not as publicly. And so, a lot of schools have always done that, and they've had good players as a result. So I've always respected the guys that have done it in the NFL because the NFL does everything they can to make it equal footing. And so, he did a tremendous job of taking, a quarterback that nobody really wanted and turning him into the greatest quarterback of all time. And I think those two guys, had a synergy and a commitment about the two of them that was different than other organizations had. And, when you look at the success they had, I think it started with the owner and went to Coach Belichick, obviously, and went to to Tom Brady, obviously. And so, they were all in line. And I think that's critically important to be able to have any kind of sustained success, whether it's college football or the NFL.
Do you know him well? Have you met him before?
Met him once or twice, don't know him well.
Did you ever think he would?
No, never thought I would. No, just assumed he would always coach in the NFL, and assumed I would always coach in college and never really considered that possibility.
So you have talked a lot.
One thing I've learned about college football though is never say never. I mean, the stuff this thing changes. Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, we coached against Deion Sanders. I mean, who would have ever thought that, in college football? And so it's just, you just don't know. It's wild.
What do you think it is about the sort of celebrity coaches coming? What has college done to?
Well, I mean, I don't know that, those guys are good coaches. I mean, those guys they have the traits that it takes to be successful, and so people are gonna try to hire them.
You've talked a lot in the past about the importance of player-led programs.
Yeah.
Guys voted on their captains last week. Let's talk about this group of captains that you've got.
Yeah, I think, this is an interesting group of guys. You've got Bud Clark that's been here really before I got here. Bud's played a ton of football. Just seen Bud grow as a person and as a leader in our program. And, Bud was one of those guys when I first got here that you hoped was on the bus. And now Bud's one of those guys that's making sure everybody else is on the bus. He's just kind of grown into that role, and he loves TCU and he loves playing, and so he's been a natural. Devin Deal over here is a guy that's a transfer that obviously really played at a high level for us, last year, and he's a hard worker and mature and knows what it takes to be successful. And so those two guys defensively, and then obviously you got Hoover, and kind of came in, and I think he showed to his teammates really how much they meant to him by sticking around here and turning down a pretty significant opportunity to make a lot more money. And I think he already had everybody's respect, but I think he even earned it more when that happened, just because they knew that he was committed to them and to seeing it through on this team and trying to go compete for a championship. And Cole Deary's kind of the same thing. He's a transfer that's come in that's that's a gritty guy up front, kind of the leader of the linemen. And then you got Chase Curtis, who's been playing football since I was a kid. So, you got a really kind of experienced group.
Coach, you talk about your captains, but we talked to some of the older teammates and older guys around this team. They talk about 22 and how everything's so similar, chemistry-wise, camaraderie. Can you see that with this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's early. What made that team so good was that the harder it got, the better they played. You know what I mean? I think, you go and you look at that stretch run we had kind of toward the end of the season when we had every one of our skilled players were out and banged up, and guys behind them just stepped up and made plays and fought and, grinded through it. And so, that team was a tough team. And I think this team has the makings to do that. You never know until they're faced with it. And so that's going to be the challenge for us, because it's going to happen on Monday. I mean, look, it's a tough environment to go play in. Their fans are going to be excited. They'll be sold out. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the guys. And there's going to be adversity. It happens in every game, and how we're going to respond is going to be what really defines this team.
Every game is important, but these standalone games, this one going to Ireland this year, how important are they for the visibility of the program?
Yeah, they're big. I mean, they're big. I think I've always just been a believer that the most important thing is just to win football games. I think people, sometimes you just force them to notice you and pay attention to you, and the only way to do it sometimes. There's artificial ways to generate that stuff. I prefer the winning way, and if you can win consistently, then people will take note.
Cooper McDonald made the 53 roster for the Kansas City Chiefs. How cool?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for him. It's funny, when he went to the Chiefs, when he signed that, it was kind of a tryout deal. It wasn't even a free agent deal, it was a tryout deal. I just had a conversation with him. I just said, that's the perfect organization for you. That's a place that values hard work and being a good teammate and, special teams, and a guy that can have a big role on special teams, and also a guy that has a really kind of unique skill set. And so, I was really disappointed when he got injured last year, because he's just such a good football player and just makes people better around him. And so I wasn't really surprised when he made Kansas City, honestly. I mean, it's just like I said, I think it was the perfect franchise for Cooper and kind of who he is. And so I was really excited about it. And you know, that's what you want. I mean, you fight your whole life to get an opportunity, and then you gotta go make the most of it, and really proud of him for doing that.
Anything else? Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you guys. See y'all next week.